So, September 15th, by the looks of it, it seemed as if all of Morocco wanted to migrate illegally to Spain.
Such surreal images that we've been seeing
Yeah,
this week,
that was
honestly.
wild.
Even though it was kind of spoken about beforehand and we knew what to
Hmm.
expect and due to all the talks on social media, but I think seeing it in person and in real life really did strike a chord with a lot of Moroccans, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, let's try to break it down a little. What had happened was there was a wave of social media content, a lot of videos on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, just calling for people to join the Great Escape, basically. Everybody was just gonna up and leave, either try to storm the border or try to swim from Fnideq to Ceuta. And it was very counter effective because it did actually raise alarms with authorities. I mean, we saw for days before,
Mm,
obviously, like
mm,
there was massive security alert. There were so many officers, cars, and on both sides, on
mm.
the Moroccan and on the Spanish side, which kind of rendered the whole September 15 operation ineffective. And we saw like it kind of like showed Moroccans what's actually happening, what's actually going on.
Mm.
Because this isn't new.
This is not
It's
new.
not
This
new.
is, I feel like irregular migration has been a constant challenge for both Moroccan authorities and a reality for a lot of
Hmm.
Moroccans, especially living in the northern part of Morocco. It's such a normalized concept. And um, the irregular migrant hopefuls keep getting younger year on
I
year.
think that's what raised a lot of alarms with people online is that they saw so many children, like, who
Mm.
should be in classrooms? Like, what are you doing trying to swim to Suta? Like, 10 year
Yeah.
olds, 12-year olds. I think
Like
that's what really shocked people the most.
there was too many of them that hadn't reached the stage of actually giving up on their
Yeah.
country yet,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's so, and it keeps getting younger and younger every time, and it's also due to Spain and the overall EU's policy when it comes to receiving minor
Hmm.
refugees and unaccompanied minors, which instead of it being a positive sort of humanitarian policy, it has now turned against itself and is now more of an incentive to have minors migrate to these countries. And
That's a very interesting point, but it kind of brings up the question of how did we get here? How did a humanitarian policy manage to be taken advantage of and incite children, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, prepubescent teenagers into risking their lives just like for the
mm,
hope of like reaching Europe? Where did that come from?
well, first of all, it's the result of decades of indoctrination of like how Europe is constantly being perceived as this paradise
The
where
European dream.
you're going to get it easy. You're
Hmm.
going to get unemployment benefits and free healthcare and free education, and you don't have to do anything and you don't have to work, and which is all false, obviously. Like these
But you gotta
benefits
also
come
point
with.
out how people there's like this very obvious disparity, and there's a gap between the level of life here in Morocco as opposed to Spain. And given Morocco's extreme proximity to Spain, there's always this idea of how come, like, just like a few kilometers away, life is supposedly super easy, where, as you said, where you're gonna get unemployment and you're gonna find a job easily and all that. But in Morocco, it seems desperate.
I feel like a lot of people have a very wrong idea about making it in Morocco versus in Europe.
Mm.
A lot of people would be very happy to work certain jobs in Spain that they would never work in Morocco just because they pay
Mm.
in euro, right?
Yeah.
And that for them, that has more value than what they could be making here. But also, you're here in Morocco, the economic climate makes it seem very difficult to make it. Socioeconomic sort of ascension and elevation
Yeah,
is
mobility.
extremely difficult in this country. Many times, young people will continue in the same socioeconomic class that they were born into, that their grandfathers
Yeah,
were
just
born into.
poverty begets more poverty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's because Morocco's economy is highly dependent, for instance, on higher education, which not everybody has the luxury of accessing. It is also just, for instance, creating a business is entangled in all of these administrative hurdles, and there is a lack of access to information, to credible and factual information. There is a lot of emphasis on um, experience, and these are not things that are given to everyone,
And
right?
it's
Like,
getting more difficult each year. I mean, especially when you take into consideration rising inflation, rising unemployment rate, especially within the youth. It's at 33%, I think. Also, the rise in rural unemployment, like the drought is also playing a part in this. A lot of people are abandoning their farms, abandoning their livelihoods that they have had in generations to try and find work in cities because it's no longer profitable because of the drought. And like you said, this just like underscores this lack of access to social mobility, to economic mobility. Add to that our geographical proximity to Spain. Add to that these waves of social media campaigns. Eventually, of course, the would-be migrant would be getting younger and younger. Of course, this is going to be happening. Like,
but it's really sad because none of these children have truly had a
tried.
chance to
Yeah,
try
yeah,
yet,
yeah.
right? They're so young, and they are being fed this fantasy of like, oh, like because you're young, you have to go now since you're still young because it'll be easier for you to access Europe, right? Which this brings me to the shockingly devastating sort of particularity of this recent mass migration attempt is the fact that it was started on social media, it was promoted on social media, and the numbers that we've seen in this week in the north, in Fnideq, are direct result of social media
Yeah,
reach.
absolutely.
And then you hear allegations about this coordination, right? This potential coordination from third parties, from human traffickers, from brokers, like irregular migration brokers, and it just becomes a lot scarier because that means that
There's a systemic
there's
exploitation of social media and of these policies.
yes, and that there is a direct targeting of younger people who don't know better that is pushing them towards believing in this already popular fantasy, especially in the northern areas of Morocco. Irregular migration is so normalized in society there, right? It is, it comes as an easy plan, as a natural plan almost to a lot of
Yeah.
people, and unfortunately younger and younger people every day. So this really is a new danger that these social media platforms are showing us this time, and it's honestly really scary.
And I feel like authorities are starting to pay attention. They're starting to notice these things. I mean, even before September 15, when the campaign was really like gaining momentum online, on TikTok, Instagram, whatsoever, and a lot of people got arrested for inciting people for illegal migration. Some of them were not like 20, 19. A lot of them are just young, normal people who were arrested, and authorities are slowly picking up on these waves on social media, and I hope that it's going to lead somewhere. I hope that it has to actually have some real life effects that will kind of curb this new way of inciting migration. However, I feel like there are root causes that actually make these people, these would-be migrants that are targeted, they make them a prime target for these social media campaigns. And we have to address the root causes. We have to address disenfranchisement. We have to address poverty. We have to address unemployment.
Marginalization.
Yeah, especially like you said, especially in the north. Like a lot of northern regions are very underdeveloped compared to Morocco's central hubs, Casa, Rabat, Marrakech, and whatnot. And as long as like opportunities are fleeting and opportunities, there's a lack of opportunity for young people, especially young people that are not, as you said, that don't have higher education, that are going to work, so to speak, unskilled jobs. They must have some sort of social net that they can fall on, because as you said, why would they choose to do those unskilled jobs abroad but not in Morocco? Simply for the fact that the social net abroad is stronger. And
Well, it exists, first of all. I mean, the government has announced that it has plans for direct social aid, right?
Yeah.
In order for you to receive the direct social aid, you have to have kids. You have to
Well, that in of itself just completely eliminates this huge part of the population, because
Yeah.
most people who are doing this, who are throwing themselves in the sea to reach Europe, are young people. Some of them are teenagers.
Yeah.
So
It's honestly the root causes.
there's a lot of limitations to the social aid that is being proposed right now.
Of course,
So
it
many
is not
limitations.
enough, and it is nothing compared to what exists in Europe. However, we in Morocco are just starting to implement these sort of mechanisms of benefits for the underprivileged. In Europe, they've had decades to work on theirs, so they're much stronger. They've also had centuries of exploiting African countries and Asian countries and pillaging their wealth to be able to afford such benefits.
Yeah.
So, of course. But at the end of the day, leaving Morocco is becoming more and more normal, regardless of your socioeconomic class. And that's the worst part. How many people do you know are very skilled people,
They
have
have
a higher
yeah.
education, had great jobs, and yet migrated to Canada, to Dubai, to
Many European countries.
multiple
Yeah.
European countries. All of these people are leaving, even though they were good here, right? And we hear politicians talk about this all the time, the skilled worker escape.
And it's not just skilled workers. I mean, I'm going to bring this up. We also noticed that recently a lot of athletes are, quote unquote, escaping illegally. So many athletes throughout the years recently have just went with a Moroccan delegation to whatever European country for whatever sporting event, only to come back missing one or two members who decided to just stay there illegally, to drop everything, drop my career, because the career was barely anything,
Yeah.
because there isn't like a social security net for athletes, for even
I feel like
this
considering
highly
our-
skilled people in whatever field are also struggling with this.
Everyone is struggling.
Yeah.
So leaving starts to seem like a normal or like an acceptable plan B, right?
For a lot of people, it's plan A.
See, that's the thing.
This
Like,
is what's
if you're
happening right
if
now.
you're underprivileged and if you don't have access to opportunities, you don't have a job, you don't have an education, whatever, it will be your plan A.
Yeah.
However, even with the people that have made it in this country, what does it say that even them, they choose to leave? I mean, that reflects horribly on the country, on the
Yeah.
government, on the social state,
There's
on everything.
just this wave of disillusionment among the youth specifically. A lot of people are disillusioned with their future in the country, and this is a huge problem that is not being, I don't see it being addressed like directly. Why are so many young people disillusioned with the country? Why are we losing highly skilled laborers and low skilled laborers all across all of the socioeconomic spectrum? How come this is happening and not being addressed?
I feel like every single person has their own reason. Sometimes it could be something super traumatizing, like losing someone someone close to you at an ill-equipped hospital and just getting
Fed up.
fed up with everything. Sometimes it could be not finding a job that pays you what you think your efforts are worth. Could be you wanting to exercise a profession that isn't really advanced here in Morocco, or its infrastructure isn't really yielding to much. It could be that you feel that you're less free. It could be that
The
you...
social part of it is also a big deal.
Yeah, and also as a woman, I feel like we could relate to this a lot, is that there's a difference, right? When you go to some Western European countries or North America, not to say that these countries don't have assaults and whatnot, but
you just feel a little safer.
Maybe it's an illusion that we all have, but it exists, right? So yeah, I feel like there's very different reasons as to why someone would think of leaving their country. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing, which is dissatisfaction with
The status quo.
even with wills to change. Because at the end of the day, I feel like Moroccans have been having the same demands for like as long as I can remember. But when change is implemented, it is either done in a very aggressive manner, like we've been seeing, for instance, with medical students recently, or it's being done in a manner where it's too late,
Super slow,
that it's
super
perceived
late,
as not enough, like the case with the direct social aid.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately for the type of people that we've seen this time in Fnideq, it is mostly because of marginalization and, unfortunately, manipulation also from social media, from these like people who have a gain in irregular migration.
You know, this brings me to a point that I wanted to touch on, which is the public's reaction to what we saw over the weekend in Fnideq. I saw massive polarization, quite honestly, on social media.
Yeah.
Sometimes from the same person. People are like, there's this divide between people who are very sympathetic, who recognize the marginalization and who recognize the desperation that would drive someone who's still in their very formative years into such an extreme decision, as opposed to another section of people who are just like blaming their laziness. They're blaming their socioeconomic situation on laziness, and they're saying that they are ruining the country's image abroad.
Oh my God, that was such a horrible take. That was
Seriously?
That's the last thing you should be worrying
Like,
about right now.
Are we seriously worried about how we look abroad? People are still living in tents.
Dude.
Food is expensive. Our reputation abroad is the least of our problems right now.
Migratory movements are occurring all the time, all around the globe, right?
For very different reasons.
For completely different
Yeah,
reasons.
yeah.
For war, for conflict, for
Climate.
prosecution, for climate, exactly, or for economic reasons, right? And reactions here in Morocco are not really different than reactions that we see from the American public, for instance, when it comes to South American migrants, or even African migrants recently. You know, there was this spike in African migrant reception in the U.S., and it caused quite a stir. And people who supported South American to North American migration suddenly were highly opposed to this new group of people. And mind you, most of them were asylum seekers or political asylum seekers.
Which is usually the case. It is most likely always the case. It's very funny to me when, I'm going to go on a tangent, but it's very funny to me when these people bring up, come into the country legally. Are you familiar with the asylum seekers and the process? That's how it's done.
It's legal,
It's
and
legal.
yet
It's not illegal. What they're doing is not illegal. They're refugees. They're asylum seekers, and there is a due process that they have to go through that has been completely ruined in recent years, just like trampled on. And it's turned this entire tide like you said, like people who were okay with migration, who were very favorable and pro-migration, suddenly are like, oh no, we don't want these people here. We noticed it also in the UK recently. There was this
Yeah.
insane surge over one incident involving a migrant, a second generation or third generation migrant, and suddenly it's like riots, race riots.
These reactions this time were very interesting. I feel like because there was some viral footage that accompanied it. I feel like with these migratory sort of incidents in Morocco, there's always been a split opinion, right? Like, let them go. Let these people look for a better life. Good luck for them, right? And then you have the other side of like, these are lazy people that just don't want it easy, that just wanted it to be handed to them, and etc.
How is attempting to swim to another country lazy is beyond me.
I mean, people have different opinions about that, but it's always been the case. But recently, some of the images that circulated on social media, not to say that depicted what happened, we don't know yet for sure, but some of these pictures and videos really did shock a lot of people, and it enticed some reactions that we maybe have never seen before.
There was that infamous photo, two infamous photos, which as of yet have not really been investigated thoroughly. There was an investigation launched in order to find out whether these photos date from this weekend or if they're older, what were the circumstances that led to what we saw in that photo. And like you said, that has it did trigger a bunch of reactions that were very strange on both sides. On the sides that were saying, yeah, they deserve it, let them be treated that way because God knows what could justify such treatment. While other people are like, they're saying that these people, like, we see this treatment internationally for gang members, for people who are convicted
for violent
on
offenders,
very violent crimes, not a would-be migrant that was caught before they even reached Europe. Like,
police brutality is never okay, no matter the circumstance, right?
I can say that again.
However, what made me just a little surprised is that some people's condemnation of authorities' efforts prior to the release of those photos, prior to anything, just when authorities were moving up north and filling up streets and deploying
what do you want them to
teams.
do?
Like, what do you want them to do? To let these people cross illegally? Okay, fine. On the other side of the border, there was a military level lineup from Spanish authorities. Any person that would have crossed,
a lot of people
could have
died.
Could have gotten off like right then and there.
A lot of people would have died, whether at sea or because, like you said, once they arrive,
because
military reception.
Exactly, because Spain has the right to do that.
Yeah.
It is protecting its own territory. So if we compare this, for instance, to the Melilla stampede that occurred 2 years ago. 2 years ago?
3 years ago.
2 years ago. A lot of people died because the line of defense from Moroccan authorities was not ready when these people attacked. And a lot of people died for no reason.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they got stepped on. They got suffocated. The death toll from that incident was a shock to a lot of people. But this is the sort of police force that is required in order to avoid tragedies like that.
Yeah.
It's true that because this whole action was sort of coordinated on social media, it gave Moroccan authorities a lot of time to deploy teams to make sure that they prevent the crossings. But it doesn't really justify those pictures.
Nothing can justify those pictures.
We know that Moroccan authorities can do very, very well, just as they've done multiple times, without resorting to
violence.
brutality, to extreme violence or anything. And we're just going to have to wait. I mean, the Interior Minister was requested to appear before Parliament today, actually, as of the time of filming this video. And we're about to find out the results of the investigation and everything that follows. But
either way, I think the consensus, despite a lot of people who were more on the accusatory side towards these would-be migrants, the consensus online is that nothing could justify treatment like that, and people are demanding for accountability. And like you said, we're gonna wait and see where that's going to lead.
Yeah, before we get accountability, we should get some clarity first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, there was a statement saying that those pictures are not recent, right? But how old are they?
Pretty much. Yeah.
How old are they? Are these people different ages? Are they?
I think
like,
someone
where are
said,
these people yet?
Someone said that the police car that you can see on one of the pictures dates back to 2023. Someone
So
said
old.
that that's a new model. It's not
antique.
Yeah. So if by old you mean 2023, that's not doing what you think it's
but
doing.
also there's a level of like sensationalism that's going on,
Which
because
is
I've
totally
seen
normal.
social media posts that are being like, this is why you should illegally migrate.
Oh yeah, I mean there has been a new campaign. There have been renewed calls for mass migration popping up online. The new date is September 30, and like you said, a lot of people are using the pictures and footage that came out of the past weekend to call for even more migration. So this is like, it's not over. We're not done yet. This is,
And
the
I
issue's
feel like
not going away soon.
it's
Apparently,
also bringing in more people that are irregular migrants, but that are not Moroccan, who want to. This is giving them some time to also join, as they've done on September 15th,
which is also not new because Morocco's geographical position is very
particular.
Yeah, it's very strategic for multiple reasons. So Morocco has always been like this crossing.
A crossing migration
point.
hub.
Yeah, a migration hub for people from either
North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa.
Sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. So a lot of these people are also going to join. Some of them already joined. I mean, a lot of people were arrested that weren't Moroccan in over the weekend. So yeah, we're going to see more of these people also on September 30th, allegedly. How are we going to, whether they're going to succeed or not, I mean, if we're going to base it on September 15th, it's not looking great because authorities are on you. Authorities are already prepared on both sides. But this just highlights that there's a very growing sense of frustration among the youth, and things like these are going to start happening more often.
I don't think it's going to stop ever. Maybe the flows and the sort of roads and routes will change. Maybe in 100 years, people from north will be migrating west. We don't know, but it's never going to change.
People have always moved.
It's never going to change.
Yeah,
People are always moving. That's how we've reached this sort of spot in humanity that we're in right now. It's inevitable. The point is to try to limit it, right? At least if someone wants to leave their country, it shouldn't be because they feel like it's not giving it enough, right? They could leave because they feel like they've outgrew it or they want to experience something new. But they should never leave out of frustration.
It should not be 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds who haven't even left school yet, haven't even had a chance to even try
and
to
fail.
Make a life. Exactly. Which is massive problem. I think educational programs are going to be very, very important. There needs to be some work done on that front.
I think at least showing them pathways that they can make it here as well, and that they can live different lives than their parents, and that they can. It's a yes, it's harder. Yes, it's more challenging, but it can happen. Also, regionalization, please.
That is a whole other can of worms. that I don't think we have the
It's very,
time to get
no, we
into
don't.
right now. But yeah, regionalization and creating more opportunities for marginalized regions, especially in the north, the smaller towns,
The
because most of these
East.
people are from small towns. Most of these people are from towns where there is nothing, absolutely nothing to do. And we are already noticing an increase in internal migration. A lot of
Yeah,
people are moving within Morocco to find jobs, to run away from drought, to try and make a better life for themselves. And when these people go to the city and nothing happens for them, then
they don't have a choice.
what's the resort?
So, to wrap things up, I think we can all agree that migration has always and will always be a challenge that Morocco will have to deal with. People can differ on how the government should better deal with these situations, but it is a fact of human life and of
Mm-hmm.
society, and at least we should equip our society to not feel like it has to move in order to live better. But if you're leaving, it should be a choice
Yeah.
and preferably done legally. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know what you want us to talk about next time. Until then.